so glad that you were able to hang out with me for a little bit and talk about your experiences. So thank you.
Yeah, it was an experience.
Um,
Okay.
Introduce yourself and then tell us a little bit about your stroke and your aphasia story.
Okay. My name is Mert Robinson, but I normally go by Mert. And the WebMD captured my story in an article in March 2017. But my stroke happened in December 2004, almost 20 years ago,
Oh my goodness. So
this
really,
Christmas.
yeah, coming up on 20 years. Wow.
hmm And I was excited because me and my husband, my late husband, were going on a cruise, Royal Caribbean cruise. We have taken many cruises before. And I was at work. I was rushing because I wanted to get home, finish packing because we were going to leave the next day in the morning, early in the morning. And being me, I'm a type A personality. I had to do all follow up before I left work. My assistant was there with me, and I had to go to the restroom. I went to the restroom, walked out into the mirror so I could see myself clear as day. And then all of a sudden, I could not speak and I fell on the floor.
Oh, wow.
But God had mercy on me because He sent my assistant to the restroom following me because she had to use the restroom because we were about to go home. So I heard her lock the door when I came out. And I fell on the floor, could not say anything. And then she came out and found me.
Thank goodness that, especially because everyone else had gone home, thank
Right.
goodness that she was close by.
Yes.
Oh my
Yes.
goodness.
And I don't remember what happened.
Mm.
All I remember was I could not speak. I could not move my right side. My left side was okay, but my right side wasn't. And and I tried to speak in my mind. I was speaking to her,
Mhm.
but it wasn't verbalizing. And I remember the ambulance leaning over me, and I couldn't say anything. So they took me to the hospital, and apparently my assistant called my husband. So I was trying to say, I need a butterfly needle, but I was saying gibberish. And they were trying to stick me in my arm. Oh, that was, to me, that was worse than not being able to speak.
I bet. I bet. And
Yeah.
I think so. There's all these things happening. Your husband's on the way. You're, why can't I speak? And why are they sticking me with this? There's a lot happening. It's interesting too, Mert, that you remember, some people don't remember much, if anything, about the stroke
Mhm.
or immediately after the stroke, but you remember
Yes,
most
I
of it,
do.
all of it.
I do.
Yeah.
I do. After they got me into the hospital, I remember the doctor coming in and said I had a stroke, and the stroke left me with aphasia. I did not know what aphasia was, and they really didn't explain it to me except for they say loss of language. That's all I knew.
Oh.
So um, after the stroke, continuing on with that, they gave me physical therapy, occupational therapy, speech therapy, and all that. But I could not go back to work after several months and leading almost to a year. I tried to go back to work, but I could not go back to my formal engineering degree, and I couldn't go back to what we call SHRM, Society for Human Resource Management, competency-based program. I could not go back to that because I had to speak. That was my daily interaction.
Central to everything that you did professionally was
Right,
communicating.
right,
Just the
right.
thing that was becoming was had become very challenging.
Yes, it was. It was. It was. And
So you went to the hospital and you were in the hospital for a week or two,
yeah, about 2 weeks,
about two
and
weeks.
they had me going through physical therapy. I remember trying to put the blocks into the hole and all that kind of
Mhm.
stuff. And whew, they tried to get me to walk because my right side was paralyzed.
Right.
I could not walk. I was sitting in a wheelchair, and they tried to get me up and walk on the treadmill, and not the treadmill, but just walk. I forget what they call it, but it's in physical therapy.
Yeah.
Tried to walk, and I got depressed, naturally depressed, because I was an independent person. And to have that kind of stroke where my independence was lost, that was devastating to me. But my husband, he was a motivator. He was the love of my life. And at that time, we were only married for about 20 something years, but actually, we were married almost 30 years when he passed in 2018. And he's the kind of motivator like me that says, "Get up, come on, let's walk, let's go in the mall, let's walk around the track." He didn't take no for an answer. And that was me before my stroke. So we got along beautifully.
So,
But
Mert, can I recap? So I'm picturing you. You just had a stroke. You can't
mhm,
walk. You can't communicate nearly like you could before. You
I couldn't
were
even say my name. I couldn't even say my
not
name.
even your name.
Mm-mm.
So, and you were a fiercely independent, driven person with high standards for yourself.
Mm-hmm.
And out of left field, here's a stroke.
Yeah.
You have aphasia. What's aphasia? Oh, wait a minute. Huge changes. So you
Mm.
talked a little bit about that depression that came with it and that loss that you experienced.
Right.
And so, and your husband, though, was a huge motivator. He inspired you, he motivated you by
Yes.
saying, okay, let's go, Mert. We're not going to sit around at home. Let's go to the mall. Let's go walk. Let's do this and that. Say more about things that your husband did that you found really helpful.
Well, I didn't find it helpful at the time.
Ah, yes.
It wasn't helpful. I wanted to hit him.
Hmm.
I said, get away. Well, I couldn't say it, but I was thinking, get away from me.
It
But
was not welcome.
no, it was not welcome at all, because all I could do before my stroke, I knew sign language. After the stroke, I couldn't even form my fingers to do sign language. And I said, get away from me like this. And he was not having it.
He was like, nope, not the answer.
No. I said, I want to lay down and go to sleep in my mind, but it wasn't coming out in speech. And he said he drove me around to my appointments, to my speech therapist, and he went in with me to the speech therapist, and he told her what I needed, and he says, don't let her say no.
He was like, he was driving you. I mean, driving you literally, but
Yes,
also like, no, she can do more.
yes,
She
but
doesn't want to, but she
yeah,
can do more.
yeah, he was like a drill sergeant because he was in the army,
Mhm.
and he was a drill sergeant, and he was not going to let me quit, and he did not. Thank God he didn't, because I was ready to give up.
Oh.
I just said, take me away, Lord. Have your way, it's your will, let me go, and all that kind of stuff in my mind. I couldn't say that to him, but in my mind I was saying
He
it.
didn't
And
let you rest. He didn't let you rest. I mean, to be able to say she doesn't want this right now, but I know my wife, I know Mert, and I think now is the time to say, no, let's go.
right,
I know
right,
her well enough to know I need to push, I need to encourage, I
right,
need to help her get up and get going.
yes,
Since you're
yes,
able now to look back and say, thank goodness he was that person for me.
yeah, because now that I'm looking back on it, I actually says that he did not have to help me through that stroke,
Yeah.
because he was 22 years older than I was. And he always thought he would be the one who needed help. I was young, vibrant,
Mhm.
and I wasn't thinking about a stroke. I was go-getter, changing
Heck yeah.
jobs all the time,
Yeah.
traveling all over the world,
You had things to do, people to see, things to get done.
Yeah, I did. I did. And he thought, and he said to me after I healed that he cried
Mm.
and he asked the Lord, why her? She has so much life to live. I'm older. Why can't you take me?
Mm.
That's what he said to me.
Wow. Wow.
But he did not have to stay with me because, in his mind, he was running out of time because he was 22 years older. He could have left me.
So he could have left. He could have said, you know, come on, Mert, let's go. And you could have said, and he could have, all right,
Yep,
let's stay at
I'm
home. But
I'm
he
out of here. I'm
he
out
didn't
of
do
here.
either of those things.
No, he did not. He stuck by. He really did mean for better or worse, and he got the worse.
He was serious about that.
Yeah,
Wow.
yeah.
It's incredible.
Hmm.
Can you say a little bit about Your experience with speech therapy.
Mm. Um, I remember in speech therapy, they gave me a book that had simple tasks in it. They said, "What is this picture?" The picture was toothbrush, let's say.
Mm.
And I would say, rate. That's how my neuroplasticity was interwired. So I couldn't say what I was thinking.
Mhm. You knew a toothbrush when you see a
Yeah.
toothbrush, but
Yes.
just the wrong word came out. Yeah.
Yes. Yeah. And often for a while, maybe about 6 months, almost 6 months to 9 months, and I couldn't get the words out. I was having trouble reading, having trouble speaking, as you say. I just couldn't get it out. But as time went on, it slowly, I guess my neurons connected. They didn't connect to the right spot, but they reconnected to another spot.
Yeah.
So I could say what I was thinking.
That's exactly neuroplasticity. Our brain is very dynamic. So
Mm-hmm.
even when we've had a stroke and there's damage, the brain can over time kind of rewire, maybe in
Yeah.
a different way than before. But
Mm-hmm.
yeah, the brain is an amazing organ
Mm-hmm.
for its change and learning and all of those factors that go into the recovery that we see in aphasia.
Yeah. Mm-hmm.
So when we're talking about your stroke when it first happened, not being able to say your name, not being able to find the word toothbrush when you see a toothbrush, even though you
Mm-hmm.
know full well that's a toothbrush.
Mm-hmm.
Two, the conversation that we're having now, it's very clear.
Yeah.
Things have changed a lot.
Oh yeah.
A
Yeah, but
lot.
it's been 20 years.
It's been
Almost
20
20 years.
years. And often people talk about it, that slow progression, but it continues over time.
Oh yeah, it does.
Yeah. So
It does. Go
can you
ahead.
say a little bit about, some of the key things that have helped you in your life with aphasia, especially with your communication? Like what has helped move you along from way back 20 years ago to how you are able to communicate now?
Okay. It's been a world of difference.
Absolutely.
So for instance, I have this medical alert card. I have aphasia. On the back, it says how to communicate with me.
So some good instructions
Yep.
should you need to let someone know.
Yes. And I
Can you talk a little bit about how you've seen your communication change over these years since the beginning? Huge changes. How
mm-hmm.
did you do it? Like, what were some key parts of your aphasia and your recovery?
Well, I still use like prepping for the interview. I have to write things down. I have to think about what I want to say, not in detail, but enough to get me started with the conversation.
So, organizing your thoughts a bit.
That's right.
Yeah.
And when I'm in a rush, I don't communicate well. And and my words get jumbled up. I can't think. So I use Samsung Note, which is on my Android phone, to write things down and put my thoughts down. And I have it categorized: general info, traveling, what I want to say to my sister-in-law, all that kind of stuff. I have it categorized.
So
And then,
it's planning ahead and
right,
also giving yourself some time to think things through first.
right, right, right,
Key, key
right.
strategies.
Yeah, because if you had asked me, can I do an interview, and you had the next day, I would say no. Put it next week so I can strategize for the questions that you're going to ask me so that I know what I would like to say. It may not be verbatim, but I know a clue of what I would like to say.
Yeah, that makes sense.
Mm-hmm.
So can you say a little bit about you've talked about your husband Thomas and about how he motivated you in those early days after your stroke. Can you say more about things that other than your husband that have inspired you, that have motivated you to
Oh
keep
yeah.
going?
Oh yeah. Um, I like music. I've always liked music, but I especially like a diverse music when I met my husband. Because he was 22 years older, he had a vast variety of experience. And music is auditory, and it helps me to visualize, which I'm primarily a visual person, what I want to say. So I
Oh,
listen to,
interesting.
yeah, I listen to the music, which is auditory, and it gives me an image, being visually, of how I want to say it. And that's why I I wrote my memoir. I started writing my memoir after I had my stroke.
Right. Okay. So there's so much here, Mert. So music, I want to make sure I get this because I think it's really, really interesting. Listening to music is really helpful for you
Mhm.
because it allows you to, it helps you to visualize or to, would you say, think about, meditate on, imagine what it is you want to say.
Exactly right.
So that's such an interesting connection between music, visualizing music, or thinking on your communication.
Mhm.
But I get what you're saying. Like it,
Mhm.
and I wonder if there's some, you talked earlier about feeling anxious or frustrated, and that does music also help you feel more calm? And
Yes,
so your
especially
brain
jazz.
can do what it needs
Mhm.
to do?
Yeah, contemporary jazz. I have a music playlist. I have piano music. I have jazz music, gospel music, female music, male music. Depending on how I'm feeling, I will put that playlist on, and it helps calm me down.
It helps maybe settle the noise a bit
Right,
so that
right.
you can think about, I want to say this, or
Mm-hmm.
I want to communicate this type of message.
Right.
That's really, I really like that as a strategy because I actually think there are many other people who may have that same relationship with music, that
Mm-hmm.
music can calm them and allow their brain to do visualizing or other kinds of thinking about what I
They
want
have
to say.
they have music and the brain with all kinds of aphasia. And some people, they play music, they play the guitar, and they play the trombone, being the trumpet, and it helps relax them.
Yeah.
My aphasia participants, members, they do the night of aphasia with the National Association, National Aphasia Association, Night of Aphasia. And that's where I did a poem that also helped me because I was listening to some music that I love that reminds me of my husband. And I said, I can do a poem about that. Mm-hmm.
Acrostic. So
And
an
I had to
acrostic poem called Smile.
smile.
Uh-huh.
And I had to practice that word a million times before I tape recorded myself to do the night of aphasia. The night of aphasia art program. I could not say, even though I looked at that word, I could not say the word properly. But I got it after a million times saying
You can see it and just can't say it. Yeah. Yeah.
Aristotic poem or whatever it says.
Yeah. So music, it inspires you, but it also settles your mind so that you
Yes,
can kind of form what you want to say in a
right,
poem or communicating in lots of ways.
right.
What else inspires you or motivates you?
My late grandmother,
Hmm,
well, she was alive at the time I had the stroke.
okay.
And my grandmother and I were like two peas in the pod. My grandmother was like me, similar to before I had my stroke. She was the oldest of 17 children,
Hmm.
and she she raised most of them while also having her children as well because her parents died. My grandmother had determination, perseverance, resilience, and grit. All of those.
And that sounds just like you. Pers
Yeah,
Determination, perseverance,
yeah,
diligence, grit, resilience. You didn't say
yeah,
diligence. I threw that in
yeah.
because that's my
That's good.
experience of you.
That's good. That's good. That's good. She had all of those things, and she worked as a cafeteria assistant. She worked at my high school
Oh, wow.
until she retired. But she always looked out for her siblings, her nieces and nephews, her grandchildren. And she was always doing something for us, especially our family, to help to motivate us to do better. She always says, "You can do it."
So just like your grandmother, like I'm
Yes,
determined, I'm
yes,
focused, I'm
yes,
resilient, I'm gonna
yes,
do it. And you did.
yes,
You did.
yes, 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 I did. She was my before my husband, she was my utmost motivation and inspirational person and encouraging person that I could ever think of.
And what she taught you and what she modeled for you clearly was important and central for you before your stroke, but I would say really shaped how you did your life after your stroke.
Oh
That
yeah,
same determination, that
yeah.
same grit and resilience, it
Mm-hmm.
also has shaped the last 20 years.
Mm-hmm.
I would guess. Yeah.
Yeah, it did. It did. Between her and my husband, They were two forces to be reckoned with.
I bet. Like, what an amazing combination of people in your life that shaped you from the beginning, but also shaped you as someone who has experienced, survived, and is thriving after stroke.
Right.
Really
Mm-hmm.
amazing.
Mm-hmm.
So I don't want to keep you forever. Well, I do. Let me say it. I do want to keep you forever, Mert,
Yeah.
but I
Okay.
won't.
I got the point. I got the point.
Can you provide a little bit of advice for people who have had a stroke, maybe recently? What can you tell them to motivate them, to inspire or encourage them
Mm.
about their path with aphasia?
I would say life will get better.
Life will get better.
Mm-hmm. If you keep practicing, you cannot lay down and wish life passed you by. Got to get up, do your due diligence, because faith requires work. You can't just say, Lord, help me, and not do any work. You got to do the work.
The answer is not going to fall in your lap, or the
Right.
recovery in this case is not going to fall in your lap. It takes hard work.
Yes. Yes. That's all I can say to them. I don't know how long it will take. Some people have it short.
It's so incredibly variable. And even the labels that we use to describe aphasia, they're not they're not big enough to
Right.
describe how variable aphasia.
Yes. Yes. Yes.
It would be wrong of me to not ask you about your memoir.
Okay.
We touched on it, but tell me more about your memoir.
And the title is Through It All, Still I Rise.
So the memoir title, Through It All,
Mm-hmm.
Still I Rise.
Yes.
Mm,
And through it all, I have become more knowledgeable about how I can rise. It may take some challenges, some struggles, but still I rise. And the divine spirit has led me to write the memoir to encourage people through their trials and tribulations. I'm writing the book for the underserved community. I'm not writing it to make money.
mm,
I'm writing it so when they feel like they have challenges, trials, and tribulations, and they want to give up, they can look at my story and say, well, if she did it, maybe I could do it too.
that's right. It's such a powerful message, Mert. And I'm so thrilled that you are writing down your experiences, your approach to how you've done the last 20 years. And putting it so beautifully that it's through the struggle, it's through the things that are so hard that that growth comes, that the perseverance, the determination to keep going. It's
Right.
easy to be determined when something is an easy
Going right.
thing.
Right.
When something's going right, it's easy to be determined, but it's a very different thing to face challenge,
Mm-hmm.
earth-shaking challenge, and decide and push through. And
Right.
still that spirit that you learned from your grandmother,
Mm-hmm.
that resilience, the keep going, that's really served you amazingly well these last, well, your whole life, but
Yeah.
really through the last 20 years especially.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, it has.
That's great. Mert, thank you for sharing all your story, your experiences, your motivations, and your wisdom. I always benefit from your wisdom. And so I'm excited that you can share a bit of that wisdom with others, especially with your upcoming memoir as you
Mm-hmm.
wrap it up. So I'm looking forward to it.
Thank you. That's my story, and I'm sticking by it.